Okay, let's get started.
Harishanam Guru Purnima Namaste. Yeah.
Thank you. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu mavid vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So who wants to start with the Bhagavad Gita?
ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुशं ददामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेक्षिणीम् नमोऽस्तु देव्याश विशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दाय तपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः
Jayashree?
प्रपन्न पारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्।
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यः मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः।
Good. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the last few shlokas of the 13th chapter of the of Bhagavad Gita. So far, as we talked about last time also, what are we trying to do here in trying to gain all this knowledge, right? And I had opened up last time also, but Anant also was, Anant, you were probably joined a little late last week. Um, so far from the 13th chapter, I just wanted to open up. So what are the key things that we have really received here? What do you
20
all think?
characters. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Chandra.
20 characters, how to take it up, all those things we have. And that
Right.
yeah, Niyam and Jnanam, Niyam, all those things. And Atma, how
Correct.
to
Uh-huh.
describe the Atma and all those things. Really, it was really very eye-opening. And we are yet to
Exactly.
do so many
I
things.
think
Yeah.
you perfectly said it was eye-opening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So, the from 13th onwards, we are really exposed to the highest knowledge of really what is my true identity? Who am I? You know, and with my relation to the entire universe, uh, what is really the whole universe? And how am I connected to the whole universe? So this part of it, that a tattvamasi, that asi part of it, that's the part that we're really coming into, right? So we'll go directly into shloka number 31, which is where we left off last time. The whole idea is, if this entire world is something outside of me, and this entire world, which I'm calling it as Prakriti, where our entire senses is so fascinated by the variety, the color, the diversity, etc. So how, how am I really going to, what is my relationship with this whole Prakriti? So this is what in Shloka number 31, he says, when the whole variety of beings, yada bhuta pratak bhavam, you know and this I recognize is something which is resting on that one changeless. So all this beings that is changing, all this variety of things, materials which are different colors and different aspects, different properties, they all are changing things, but they are resting on the one. I mean, in US, pretty soon you're going to have your fall season where you're going to see those colors. But are those colors, something which is totally new? No, they're just something which are changing, but they're all resting on that one unchanging substratum. Tata eva cha vistaram, that itself is really which has come forth from that one unchangeless. And when this part of it the person understands, such a person becomes Brahman. So here it's not as if the person is becoming Brahman, but the person realizes that we are none other than that absolute Brahman itself. Okay, so he sees that even this Prakriti, which is operating actually in the realm of, when we have talked about this before, which is operating in this realm of ignorance, and the person recognizes that in and through everything, this veil of ignorance, it is none other than that particular Brahman which is there. So at that point in time, you see that whatever, even a small trace of ego that might be there in a person, that is not there. So this is what we see as a transition of the identity itself. Okay, that union of that Atman with the Brahman, that happens. So Anupashiti. So this prefix Anu Ekam Stam Anupashiti, the prefix this one, which basically just intensifies really the word of the verb what we say as seeing. Okay, so Anupashati meaning that, Anu meaning that repeatedly. So this person repeatedly now sees nothing but that aspect of that Lord which is there in and through every being. And there is in that focus from the realm of Prakriti to that of Purusha. So it's like, seeing, when I see this entire thing as diverse. Just like, for example, the simplest example which can be given is this pot and clay, where I see, when I look at this variety of pots sitting in front of me, small, big, different colors. But in and through of it, what I was seeing as different pots of different colors, I'm now seeing nothing but clay. Okay, clay is the one which is really the common factor in all this. And I'm now seeing clay instead of all these colors. In and through all this, I see that oneness. And so to this example which we can give of the ocean and the waves, earlier I would probably go to the ocean and enjoy the waves coming and, really play with the waves. But now, in and through all those waves, I recognize it is nothing but water. So, Anupashyati is in and through repeatedly. I'm reminded that this entire world is nothing but that oneness. So, it is that kind of an intense sadhana which we need to take, where we are going beyond our own doership to beyond that prakriti to that purusha level. So this is what the shloka is really reminding us. Prakrit eva cha karmani kriyamanani. So prakrit. So then the question may arise, does that mean the entire thing really disappears or something, and that person is seeing only Brahman everywhere, which means that he doesn't see the colors or anything? That so this verse has to be really carefully understood. it should really not be misunderstood here. So it basically means that in and through all the diversity, the person recognizes that oneness which is there throughout all this Prakriti. So Bhuta Pratak Bhavam Ekastam Anupashyati. So just again trying to say that the person has now sort of woken up, from this so-called dream, when I'm seeing everything in front of me earlier without this knowledge, I would look at everything as something which is diverse from each other. Every being is different, and um, but at some point, with this knowledge, I will be able to wake up to a higher level of looking at the same thing in a different way, you know. So it's basically nothing but the waking up of this. Waking up is what is really coming through in this shloka here. Uttishta cha jagrata prapyavaran nibodhata. You remember the shloka from Kathopanishad, and Swami Vivekananda has used this so beautifully to say, wake up, wake up. What are we waking up from? You know, we are actually waking up from our own ignorance. We are waking up from our own way of looking at things. We are waking up from something which we have always taken it for granted. So, how long are we going to look at this? I need to wake up. I need to wake up from this. And that is what, this whole thing is saying. Tata eva cha vistaram. So, to understanding that at the end of the day, the Sthiti Karanam, the Sthiti Karanam, where is it emerging from? It is emerging from that the pluralistic verse, a pluralistic universe here is emerging from that very changeless substratum itself. So, this creation, this entire creation that I see at the end of the day, not only that all of us are part of it, that I'm part of it, but I am that. I am that from which all this creation has come about. So, Brahma Sampatyade. So, Ekastam indicating Sthiti Karanam, Vistaram, Srishti. So, what is the thing? Laya Karanam. So, I'm Brahma. I recognize that Brahman itself everywhere. So, Tata, that, then, and then alone, Brahma Sampatyade, the Nani has become really one with that higher nature. So, just like, for example, going back to this dream example, when the dreamer is waking up, he becomes one with what? He actually becomes one with his own self, right? He recognizes the dream itself was not something outside, that he actually went somewhere and enjoyed the dream. The dream was within himself. So, too, in this case, when this knowledge is known, I recognize that I myself am that self in which the dream happened, right? So too, here I become Brahman, I uh, become one with Brahman. This even becoming one with Brahman, it's not as if that, suddenly I'm taking off clothes and I'm becoming one with Brahman. That is not the thing. I'm actually, in some ways, I'm taking off my own misconceptions of who I am. I'm taking off misconceptions of what my identity is with the outer world. So all this happens when I wake up from my own ignorance. So Brahma Tattva Prapti, so I attain that own self. So this understanding of Atma, if we want to take it a little more, if we want to understand this a little more, or the deeper significance of this one, so let us take this example of space. Okay. This is again this relation, as I was saying. Today, when I look at the world outside, or when I'm interacting with the world, the way we look at it is I am different. I'm interacting with this world, which is all different from me, right? So it is like, for example, I look at the space in this room as different then the space in my next room, and in my next room, I'm staying here in ashram. So there are many rooms, and each one of them is different, right? So generally, we think that space is really emptiness, and really there is nothing there at all. And sort of we take the space for granted. So, what do I do? Where do I start? So, first, I should learn that this this particular area that I'm in, this particular living room, when I'm looking at it here, it's I'm looking at this with the living room has a space here. But when space alone is there, generally we say that there is nothing. It is really not nothing. Space is actually in as we look at it in our shastras, it is a positive thing. Okay, even scientifically, we can prove that space is not empty or space is not nothing. It is a positive substance, and this positive substance is what is there in all these places. So let us go to the next stage. Space, which is not, is that we understand that the space which is there in many of these halls are many, and they may look varied, but this or the halls may look different, but the space is one and the same within every wall, right? The halls may look different. Some of them are big, small, different shape, size, etc. But this space itself is the same. So space is not just within every hall, but the space is outside. Everything is this one. So space is only one. And actually, instead of thinking that the halls contain space, I need to look at now as all these rooms, the outside, everywhere, um, starting from my place here to taking it to entire Kerala, to entire India, to entire world, to entire universe, everything is resting in space. So it is not as if the hall is enclosing the space. The hall is why the space is there, but it is because of space, which is the Sthuthi Karanam, that halls are there. So space is a Sthuthi Karanam for all the halls. So this is the next stage in our understanding of what Atma is. Make sense? What do you think? Are we able
Hariom,
to?
yeah.
Yes, Anand.
Yeah, it's like the house or the walls or they exist in space, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not not the other way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, how can we connect this to our own relationship with the world? Meena, you have something to say on this? Sorry, I'm picking on you. If you're there, yeah. Because this is kind of a deep concept.
Atma is everywhere. You mean that the Atma in us is the same as the Brahma, everything like that? You want to
Correct.
connect those two, or
Exactly.
Atma
Exactly. I
and
mean,
Brahma
let's
is
take a
still
simple
in
yeah. Mhm. Uh,
the
in an ocean, you have water in the small bubbles,
yeah,
and then you have water in the big bubbles, right?
correct.
The water itself is not different.
Yeah,
So the you can think about the water in the bubbles as the Atman, and the water which is there in the entire ocean is Brahman,
okay.
right?
Yeah,
So
correct.
that Atman which is there in that bubble is not different than the Brahman. It's the same water,
It's the same,
correct?
yeah.
So to each one of us, we have that Atma.
Mm.
What are we saying now? See, whenever we say, oh, we have God within us, so we say that the Atma is within us. Um, but it is not Atma is within us. We are in Atma. Just like the bubbles are in water. Just like how all the rooms are in space. Understood that part?
Oh, okay, so
Yeah?
we
But normally we say Atma is within ourselves, correct?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. See, I mean, this is a very, uh, if we can understand so much, uh, this is to establish this relationship of us with this entire world. If I can understand this shift in our thinking, that it is not as if every hall has a space, all the rooms are in space. Are we clear with that one?
Yes.
correct.
If we can understand that everything is in space, can we also take the same idea further with this relation which we want to establish of ourselves with the world? Today we think that everybody is individuals, they are living outside, and we are all, and in each of the individuals, we say that they have Atma inside. So we say that everybody, there are many, many Atmas, everybody has their own Atma. Isn't that how we think today?
Yeah.
Right? So
Mm-hmm.
if we use the same analogy, can we now say that all of us are now in Atma? So Atma or Brahman, however we want to call it right now, is the one which is there constant everywhere. And in that Atma, all of us are there.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in space, we have all the different rooms and all the materials, the Stavaram, Jangamam, moving and
Mm-hmm.
unmoving parts. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
this is just to, that's what I mean by here. So the final stage. So space is not only the support of the existence according to this one, but all the things in the creation are even born out of space alone. So space is not only the Sthuthi Karanam. What do we mean by that? Sthuthi Karanam means the support. Okay. All the things in the creation are even born out of space alone. Okay. For that one, we have talked about this a little bit before, but like in Taittiriya Upanishad, it says Akashat Vayuhum. From Akash, space, Vayu has come about, Vayu or air, Vayor Agnihi. Okay, Vayor Agnihi, meaning that from the air, fire has come out. Agne Apaha. Apaha is water. So from fire, water has come. And from Adya Prithvi. From water, we have the earth. Prithivyam Oshadeyaha. So from this so-called space, now everything is born, and in this space alone, all of them survive. And into that space alone, everything is really dissolving also. So is that clear? So
Yes.
space is really, you can say, as the starting point for this entire world here. Okay. So we have taken this whole thing into, how many different stages. First, we started with saying, um, um, let me go back to the three stages here, what we said. Um, so we started with the space. We started first understanding what is space. Then we said that space is not many. Space it's not as if the space is many kinds of space, but there is only one space, and in that space we have all the things resting in space, right? And then we are saying that not only is that space, one space in which everything is resting, but it is that space alone which has given birth to everything. Okay? They all are born, they all survive, and then they all of them die. So we've gone through this um, three different stages. First, we had the hall in space, and then we had space in every hall, and then we had when we established that the space is the same in every hall, and therefore space is not only inside the hall but also outside. And then, really speaking, space is not inside. All the halls are in space. That is also we said. And finally, we are saying that space is the one which holds all the various different rooms here, and space is the one from which all these halls itself, all the materials are born, and into all of them they die. Okay. Now, if we can understand that much, now we are extending it to this whole aspect of really who we are. How do I connect both of them? Because now so far we talked about an analogy. Now I need to connect it to this Brahman, Supreme Reality, Krishna, consciousness, all this, so that should be equated. So here, let us take all these halls which are there. This is equal to all the beings. Like I said, Stavara Jangamam, which is all the moving, unmoving parts in this entire world. So it should be equated to that. And kind of coming to ourselves, we can equate it to our own physical body. So after all this, so within that body, we say that there is consciousness. Then what the next is, if we take the same example of the space, we're saying that consciousness is not only in my body, but it is also in every body. Just like we said, space is not just in this hall, but it is in every hall, right? Then the next stage is, even though the bodies are many and varied, just like we said, the halls may be of different sizes, shapes, all that, but that consciousness behind all these bodies are one and the same. And then the next stage, what we said consciousness not only within my body, but consciousness outside my body also. And really speaking, consciousness is not just inside the body, all the bodies are resting in that one consciousness, right? And finally, the last stage we say is all the bodies, they're all born out of that consciousness and rest in that consciousness, they dissolve in the consciousness, and ultimately it is that consciousness alone which is there, and that consciousness is who I am. So, Aham, Brahmasmi, this is the essence of the whole verse itself. Okay? Is that, are we able to make that connection? So before we go into the shlokas 32 to 35, I want to make sure to that extent we understand.
So, Hari Om. So in
Hari Om.
31, for this shloka, Yatha Puta Pratak Bhava Me, that shloka, I have noted down last week, I think. You said, "O Partha, Lord has no qualities, and he is in all the bodies, but he doesn't attach with any body, and he doesn't do anything." Plus, I also put another comment here. Ishvara is responsible for everything. So when he says, "I'm not attached to anybody, I don't do anything," then naturally Ishvara is then he's responsible for everything, correct? That's what, maybe I wrote it wrong or something like that.
No, you bring up an extremely very, very valid point. So there are two statements. One is, as consciousness is not doing everything. And I think I gave the example of the car last time, right?
Yes, yes.
We equate it, and it's actually a very poor analogy, but if I can understand that analogy, I mean, these analogies of ocean and pot and everything are really, what should I say, classic examples from our Shastras itself. Our Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya has used,
Mm.
and that's why those are such fantastic examples. But I mean, I lived in Motor City for a long time, right, Detroit, and therefore this car example is a good one to explain exactly what the question you raised. You said, as consciousness, as Ishvara is responsible for everything we said, correct?
Yes.
And but as consciousness, consciousness is not responsible for anything,
Yes.
correct?
I'm not attached to anybody's. That's what
I'm
he's
not
telling.
attached to any bodies, exactly.
Mm. Mm.
So if I was attached to, we'll take it in a very, very simple manner. If I was
Yes.
attached to something, I automatically feel I'm responsible for that thing, correct?
Yes.
Uh, so that by itself, now we are saying, taking the discussion so far, what we have come so far, we are
Mm.
saying that, all these things are born in consciousness, they live in consciousness, and then they die in consciousness, right?
Mhm.
If I was attached to something, I will not allow anything to die at all, you know. So, in that
Exactly.
sense, consciousness is very detached. Okay,
Mm.
consciousness does not allow any of these things to get attached to, because if it allow, imagine if consciousness was attached to it, I mean, we would be having mountains and mountains and mountains of people who are just not dying, mountains of things which is so there has to be that cycle of birth and death and sustenance and everything, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So looking at that at one level, okay.
Mm.
However, this other level which we are looking at is that consciousness as such, and we have talked about this in some of the shlokas also, it has come, is that consciousness by itself doesn't have a physical body, doesn't have a um, physical stuff to create anything. Okay? Consciousness is absolute nirgunam.
Mm.
No gunas, no properties, nothing. Yet, it is responsible for this entire world. And this is where the concept of Ishvara comes in. Okay? Concept of Ishvara is really responsible for the entire macroscopic world. Okay? Whenever we think about Ishvara, we think about Ishvara as a very personal God who's
Mm.
only
Mm.
serving me. That's it. You know,
Yes.
when I go and pray to Ishvara, I think Ishvara is going to help only me. But Ishvara is not like that. Ishvara takes care of this entire world. He has to, I'm using the word he for just simplicity here. He has to
Mm.
make sure that um,
The whole
everything
universe.
follow the rules of dharma.
Mm.
Only when the rules of dharma are followed, the entire world can be in balance. So
Mm.
I may ask whatever I want for to Ishvara, but I need to put the effort to make it happen, and Ishvara will decide based upon the entire world, the microscopic world, whether I deserve that or not. Right? So Ishvara is responsible. So Ishvara is, you can say, the Saguna aspect of that consciousness. You know, who
Mm.
is making things happen? Consciousness by itself doesn't do anything at all. But consciousness is the support. Consciousness is the, in the form of Ishvara, keeps the world in balance and is responsible for everything that is happening. Everything. In our minds, we look at things as good and bad, ugly, etc. But at the level of Ishvara, all this is part of what needs to happen. You know,
Mm.
does that help?
Yes. Mhm.
This concept on one level, we have, in the beginning, we have to um, listen to it, reflect upon it, and sort of meditate upon it later. But before I meditate upon it, I need to really
Understand.
listen and understand it
Mm.
and get it to reflect. At the stage of reflection, Mananam, what happens is, and that is why Shravanam Mananam is so very important, right? If I listen to some of these concepts with the proper frame of mind, then what happens is when I'm trying to reflect and I'm saying, is that really true? I really don't think so. Or, I'm constantly playing within my own mind all these ideas that I may have listened in the past, or I may have had ideas about myself. I need to shatter some of that slowly and slowly. When that happens, when everything is getting chiseling down, breaking down within my own self on all these other notions I had, then I really will come through all the stages, what I just talked about, connecting, space to consciousness.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
So you're welcome. At that point, we come to really this Aham Brahmasmi, that I say, wow, that eureka feeling. Really, is this who I am? And all this time I was thinking that I'm this, simple person, who's doing things. No. So I have to take it to that level. So, this last four shlokas are really, again, probably kind of difficult to understand, but really the most, I would say, the absorbing part of it, of this chapter. And really the he's kind of bringing this, this is what we call this, we looked at four different phases, right? So this is the phase four of the knowledge that really pertains to how can I come out of my own shackles. All this time I'm moving around in this world thinking that I'm Sunita, I'm playing this particular role, and, I'm interacting with all these people. In many sense, the minute I think I'm Sunita and everything, I'm limiting my potential. I'm limiting myself to this really one very, very minor person in this whole world, you know. So I need to come out of this binding, what I've done, this bondage, and really feel free that, I'm no longer the Sunita. When I'm in a particular situation, I have to function in as Sunita in that role. But heart of hearts, I know that I'm not that. I'm actually something different. It's again like the space and the walls example, So that is the knowledge that I need to really understand. So this, I need to know that I'm not separate from the world. The world exists in me. Just like the halls exist in space, the world also exists only in me. So that is the goal I really need to go to, right? So this kshetra and kshetrajna, they are not two different things. But they are basically one and the same thing. Kshetrajna is that ultimate kshetra exists in that kshetrajna. So, we basically look at, as something separate, but we need to see that connection between the two. So that part is what we're coming to here in the next one. In shloka number 32, for example, he's saying that if I can develop that kind of attitude where everything is connected, that I am actually this world also, it'll really shift our focus, and to ultimately, it'll shift our focus to really understand who is that Ishvara, you know and not really focus upon this world itself. I will be always thinking about only Krishna. Who is that Krishna? Who is that Krishna who's helping me really unite my own self with my higher self? So you will see that, in this last four verses, as we're bringing this chapter slowly to a close, Krishna starts to describe the nature of himself, who is really that Krishna. That would be, in some sense, I think, we of course love Krishna, Krishna as a baby Krishna, or Krishna as Krishna with the flute, in so many ways. we love that much and we are saying, okay, no, 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 Krishna, you don't have to explain really who you are. I'm okay with, how you're portraying myself. That is enough for me. We may say that. And that also is very good, you know. But if I can accept that same Krishna when I'm going through issues or whatever, you know, um, and at that time I don't really, give up on Krishna. So that is why Krishna wants to describe the nature of this, his own self. And since this chapter, 13th chapter, is more on logic, he wants to clear any kind of doubts, any kind of misconception we may have about who is, what is the nature of that supreme self. You know, like for example, one doubt we may have is if this whole Prakriti is without a beginning and it is only the supreme self is also without a beginning, then what is the difference between Prakriti and Purusha? Right? So Krishna basically will say that this difference is the cause, is actually the starting point. The starting point, so far we have seen that Prakriti is nothing but basically, in one of the shlokas, he talks about the three elements, right? But that supreme self itself is without any qualities at all, that it has no association with anything, etc. And that is, all this. So basically, all this, he's trying to say here. Anaditvat, anaditvat nirgunatvat, paramatma, 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 ayam avyayah. शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते. So he's trying to, it's a very beautiful example he's giving here. Um, na karoti na lipyate. So as that supreme self, he is neither acting nor is he affected. When Mira brought up this point of, as how the conscious is not affected, not is detached, not attached at all, right? So anadi nirguna, anadi nirguna. There's so a lot of significance here. Anadi is the kind of, you would say, an indirect pointer, and nirguna is basically a pointer by negation, you know. Indirect pointer, so um, just trying to give Anadi, that Brahman is without a beginning and is devoid of any qualities. This is nirgunatvat, again, I said, we expect everything to have some kind of quality, some kind of gunas, right? So here he is saying that Supreme Brahman, again, Krishna explaining about himself, Paramatma, I am avyayaha. I am that absolute self, which is totally imperishable. Avyayaha, that is without, any parts, imperishable. Though dwelling in a body, O Kaunteya, I'm neither affected and neither am I the one who is acting. Okay. So it is really very hard to imagine something here. I'm so used to looking at myself as somebody who's always doing some things. Am I really that person who is without any qualities? Am I really the person who is, I'm not the one who's acting? So it is really very hard to imagine, So it is said that self-knowledge is really compared to, waking from this dream, right? So as I said earlier also, even though um, there are many similarities between a dream and this, which is, in a dream, I'm interacting with so many different people and everything. But from a dream, when I wake up, I'm actually coming into a bigger dream, a bigger dream where I'm seeing everything. But even that, at the highest level, at the level of a jnani, it is nothing but, again, it's a dream only. But there is, one kind of major difference, you would say, from the dream, which I'm dreaming when I'm, asleep, versus the dream that I'm seeing when I'm awake, right? So, jnanam is actually comparable to this waking state. And the difference is when I have this self knowledge here, even though I wake up, it's not as if everything disappears. The world continues to appear in front of me. Okay? So that is the biggest difference between waking up from a dream and waking up from that sleep, which we call that as tamas within my mind, which is what we call as an ignorance. The ignorance of who I thought I was all this time. I'm actually waking up from that ignorance. So all this is in my mind, right? So I'm waking up from that ignorance which is in my mind, and that doesn't mean I can make the whole world just disappear. Like how in a dream, the whole thing disappears when I wake up, right? But here the world continues to appear, and for that person who's able to wake up from that dream of ignorance, for that person, the world continues, but that person is able to now live in this world and understand that this whole thing is at the end of the day just move, is always in motion. So he continues to live, continues to be in that body, but he has a knowledge that the body is like a dream, but and I am that waker, and whatever gain or loss in the dream will not make any difference for the waker, right? Money, health, all these things doesn't make any difference. And for somebody who has woken up from that thing. So I am Atma Avyayaha. So Krishna says, I am Paramatma Avyayaha. The Atma, this is my own higher nature. It is not subject to any change. I am Nirvikaraha. So just like this waker is not wetted by the dream rain, nor is he burnt in case there is some fire or whatever. He is not affected by this, nor is he wounded by any tiger chasing him or something like that. So too, Krishna is saying, I am that Paramatma Avyayaha. And why is he saying that Avyayaha? Because I'm Anadivat, I am I don't have a beginning, I don't have an end. So unlike all of us who go through those six Shadvikaraha, you remember this Asti Jayate Vardate, Viparinimate, Apakshiyate, and Vinashyate. So birth is one of the six modifications. We all go through it. But I'm Paramatma, I am actually Nirgunatvat, I'm attributeless, and this is who I am. And so it's like, I'm like that gold, which remains the same no matter whatever happens to whatever the goldsmith might take in making the gold, right? But I am Nirgunatvat. I continue to be in this body, but I am that. So because of this one, I am able to be detached, the detachment. So that is the biggest um, benefit, phalam, we might say, or advantage. So Atma, at that stage of when I identify myself, we all have that ability to identify ourselves either with that consciousness principle, that Brahman who I am, or this physical body and say that this is who I am. But this knowledge allows us to understand that I'm actually way beyond that, right? And at that level of consciousness, I'm free. Atma is free of actions. So therefore, nothing can touch him. Na karoti, Atma is not acting, neither it is being affected. Na lipyate, it's not being affected to by anything. So he continues to be a bhokta without any palam at all. So that is a big advantage here. So let's do one more shloka here. I thought we were going to be finishing it in this class here, but we'll do one more shloka and then next week we'll finish it and then we'll do the summary, everything we'll do that. Okay. So in shloka 33, he continues with that same thing. Yatha sarvagatam saukshmyam akasham nalipyate sarvata vastito dehe tathatma na upalipyate. Okay. So here again this example of space, just like how space yatha sarvagatam saukshmyam, which is a space here. So, I mean, have you ever thought about that? Oh, space is dirty, or space is this one. We will say the air is polluted, correct? The space is not polluted. So, space never really, space is there, but so too seated everywhere in the body, the self by itself is not tainted at all. Okay, so self is remains completely undetached, not affected by anything. Okay, so Krishna is basically taking this example from the Upanishads. One example is this space here, and the other one is prakasha, which is light here. Okay, so in the previous verse, Krishna, had he showed about how Atma is associated with everything, but not affected by anything. So this is called this is one way of expressing it. Here he's saying that it is associated with everything. So just like, for example, in a movie thing, we see the screen. The screen is there, and because of the screen, the whole world is there, right? The screen is actually associated with everything. So in that sense, he's giving these two examples of this space and Atma. And so, what are the common features here? They are all both space and Atman is nothing but one, and both is all pervading here. So, in our scientific research, many times people confuse uh, this whole aspect also, that what is really the space? Is it, most people think that space is nothing but it's empty and, there is nothing there. But of course, we believe that space is really the birth for many, many different things. So that is the Sarvagatam Akasham Na Libhyate. So Krishna is giving this example that it's very subtle and it is not affected by anything, even though it is associated with everything, but yet space by itself is not affected. Okay. So any other questions or thoughts?
Arivam, these are quite powerful examples. Once we
I
the
know, isn't it?
space and the or the prakasham. Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. The if we can really focus our attention on just using this word space and this water of the ocean, then nothing else is needed. Sometimes we may think, oh my God, but this is so boring. We're always talking about the same examples. But there is no other example that can come. And by the way, I never completed my thought over there about the car example. When Meena was asking this question about um, Ishvara versus consciousness, detachment, right? So we can look at, for example, in a car, the fuel, right? The fuel which is there, which we're using to um, fuel the car from going forward and everything. The fuel by itself is the one which is really doing, without the fuel, you cannot do anything, right? But then the fuel is not the one which is responsible for the car going very fast or the car going slow or the car getting involved in an accident and all that. The fuel is the same. It's detached from any of the actions what the driver is doing. The driver is really part of this entire ecosystem Now, if the driver was driving on a desert in Arizona or whatever, he can drive as fast as he wants and there are no cars, no problem. But he can't do the same thing, say in Detroit on I-96 or whatever, right? Uh, so there is a dependence of what is to happen as an accident or whatever, which is not just the driver alone, but the driver in relation to the environment. And so that is the kind of role of Ishvara. Ishvara's role is to ensure that everything is happening in a certain way. And but the fuel by itself doesn't care what is happening, you know. Um, it's just something to think about. So we'll complete next week. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ